Hello, and welcome back to Alchemical Serenity, the pagan podcast that takes you on a journey through the woods, across the fields and moors, down to the beach, where we can sit around a campfire and talk about all things pagan, druidry, witchy, in a way that works for you on your path. My name is Carolyn, and I have been on my path for the last 40 years. My purpose is to help people navigate their own life's purpose and their own path. So if you're new, then welcome, come on in, get comfy. If you have already subscribed and are back again for more, then thank you for being part of this great circle. I hope all of you find something of use throughout all the different podcasts that I have recorded. So here we are again at the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere and the winter solstice in the southern hemisphere. And hopefully wherever you are, you will have time to celebrate. Now, although meteorologically summer started on the 1st of June, astronomically it starts around June the 21st. However, I have come to realise over the years that it doesn't matter when or where or how it starts, because we all observe these energies in different ways. So if you're listening in from the UK, you are probably now thinking, what summer? Are we actually getting one this year? As all we seem to have had at the moment is a lot of rain this season compared to the excessive heat that we had over the last 3 years. And it's been quite cold too. And I can't remember in the past ever having to put the central heating back on in June. The summer solstice goes by different names depending on the path you follow. For those on a Wiccan path, it's Litha. For those on a Druid path, it is Alban Hefin, which means either light of summer or light of the shore. It is part of the Wiccan and Druid Wheel of the Year, celebrated by pagans all over the world. Solstice comes from the Latin sol for sun and solstitium, meaning to stand still. So at this time of the year, the sun appears to stop its movement for 3 days, hence sun stands still. Now this is mirrored at the winter solstice in the same way, and there are many different names across the world for solstice because it's all about the sun, so you don't need to be interested in Wicca, Druidry, or the Wheel of the Year to celebrate this time. Litha was also known as midsummer, and this is because to our ancestors there were only ever 2 seasons, summer and winter. But in our modern times, if you're following the Wheel of the Year or maybe the 4 seasons, it can confuse issues. But midsummer also falls on what is known as St. John's Day. That's the 24th of June. Now this is a day the Christians celebrate John the Baptist, and in theory another day that they added in their own saint to a pagan holiday to ensure over time that the pagan festivals were really wiped out. The solstice is the pinnacle of light. It's the highest point that the sun is going to reach, and it invites us to bask in its warmth and embrace all the healing energies of the earth. And we can celebrate in many ways, some small, some large. Celtic, Slavic and Germanic ancestors would celebrate the day with bonfires, but we can step back further to the Egyptians who worshipped the sun god Ra, who was thought to be the creator of life and the ruler of the sun, the sky and the kings of Egypt. He is depicted as a falcon's head and a sun disk on top. The summer solstice is aligned with not only the temple at Karnak, where many people go each year to watch it rise through the Holy of Holies, but it also, in ancient times, depicted the rising of the Nile when the floods would begin to take hold of the Nile Delta. And the Roman god of the sun is Apollo. On Midsummer's Eve, people would gather lavender and mugwort, chamomile and roses to make an aromatic blend to ward off evil spirits, elves and the fae who wish to do harm. In Spain and Portugal, on St. John's Day, people would throw handfuls of lavender into fires to ward off evil spirits as well. On Solstice Eve, people would gather the flowers or boughs of Hypericum perforatum, or as is more commonly known, St. John's wort, with its beautiful sunny flowers that are always in full bloom at this time of the year. We also, as you probably know, have some awesome places to celebrate. Each one has a different atmosphere and vibe, and each one will resonate with you on a different level. However, they do get incredibly busy, and many you do need to be there hours before the sunrise, especially places like Stonehenge. So firstly, if you are in the UK and wanting to celebrate, here's my list of some really good places to go to. Of course, Stonehenge. There are conditions to attending Stonehenge for this time of the year. You can't just rock up and walk in. Firstly, it is a World Heritage Site, and to many people, it's a sacred place of our ancestors and should remain that way. The car park isn't particularly big, and I've added in a photo just so you can see. I can't tell you how lucky we are now to have this visitor centre, because back in the day when I used to visit, it was potluck if you could get into the car park, which was opposite the stones on the road. Here's some images of how it used to be. It was great having sort of less distance to walk from the car park to the stones, but it was on a first come first served basis. So this year, the summer solstice falls on Thursday the 20th of June, which means solstice eve is Wednesday the 19th. The new car park opens at 7 p.m. on solstice eve, and you have access to the stones from that time. Now the sun will set around 21:26. The field is full of people all celebrating, and there is a sun setting ceremony in the evening and then again at sunrise. Now, you can all join in with this. I think there are some words that those who hold the ceremony will say, and then you can say them as well. So there are conditions to entry, and there are security officers on site at all times. So if you're wanting to attend, I have put a link below in the description box to the English Heritage page, because there is a no alcohol rule, no drugs, no antisocial behaviour, no climbing on the stones. And believe me, I have seen people do this, and they call themselves pagans. The no drones. Security may also do searches on the way in. The ground is uneven. You are in a field, but there is access to help those who are perhaps wanting to attend, who are not particularly able-bodied, perhaps in a wheelchair. But please check on the website in the description box below, as I've said, the links there before attending, so you aren't disappointed. And if it's raining, the field could flood. There's a shuttle bus from the visitor centre to near the stones, but come prepared for rain. As I've said, at the moment, all we have had this summer, or the start of this summer, is rain in England. And it is England after all, and we are known for our wet weather, and we do it exceptionally well. Bring something to sit on too, even if it's a plastic carrier bag that you can roll up in your pocket and remember to take home. Avebury Stone Circle, that's another one on the list. Now, if you haven't heard of Avebury, this is a lovely stone circle that now encompasses a whole village. Many of the stones in the past had fallen over, and the village grew into the circle itself. And although on a handful of places I've seen people complaining about houses being built there, the stones were hidden. It's not. It does make me giggle that I see it on some Facebook pages that people have said, "Oh, I don't know how they could have built these houses in the middle of these stones. It's an absolute sacrilege." Well, it wasn't. They couldn't see the stones. The stones have been there a long time, and they'd fallen over, and they'd been grassed over, and they couldn't be seen. So 2 or 3 houses became a village. Anyway, Avebury is another really good site. This time it's in the care of the National Trust, and their car park is limited. So if you look on the image that I'm going to put up now, you can see down the bottom in the left is a car park, and you can then walk out towards the stones. You've got access via the High Street at Beckhampton Road to both sides of the stones. Now, I'll leave the link below to the National Trust site for the solstice, if you want to perhaps attend there. Glastonbury Tor, another great place to spend the night and to watch the sunrise in the east from such a great height. There's lots of singing and drumming, and it can be quite noisy. Well, I suppose they all can be quite noisy, to be fair. And sometimes you get one set of drums over one side fighting against the sound of another set of drums on the other. So if you are noise sensitive, these places might not be for you, or you might need to take some noise cancelling headphones, which kind of someone might say, well, that kind of cancels out the whole exchange of energy or the whole experience. But if you are noise sensitive, you may find that there's just too much drumming and too much singing. Glastonbury gets very busy at this time, and to be fair, it's busy for any celebration, and its diversity and eclectic fun atmosphere always shines brightly on these special dates, more than any other time of the year. Again, be prepared for wet weather, bring something to sit on, so that you're not sitting on a very soggy hill. The Rollright Stones. Now, for many years, the Rollright Stones have been a wonderful ceremony by watchers of the old ways. You can find them on Facebook. However, it has become such a big celebration, and there's very little parking in the area. The Stone Circle is just off a road, and a huge decision was made this year to move their ceremony to Avebury Stone Circle. So if you're wanting to join in, then look them up on Facebook. I'll leave a link below, and you can perhaps go and join them in Avebury. I think they're holding their ceremony in the afternoon, because the Druid groups always go in the morning for the sunrise, but they're holding one in the afternoon as far as I'm aware. The east coast of the UK. Now, at this time of the year, because of the position of the sun, you can watch a sunrise in the morning and the sunset in the evening from the same position. So if you are lucky enough to know the east coast quite well, you'll be able to go and sit in a certain place, perhaps be on one of the piers or on one of the edge of the beach itself. If the tide's out, you'd be able to watch both happening. Now, if you follow me on Instagram, I'm actually going to do it next year. I've already booked my break for the solstice, because it falls on the weekend, and it falls on the 21st as well next year, and I'm going to be on the east coast on a beach, and I'm going to try and capture both the sunrise and the sunset. That way next year. I do have photographs going up on Instagram of this year's sunset, so if you like looking at sunsets, then I try and put those up, but I'll leave a link to my Instagram in the description box below as well. Located in Anglesey in northwest Wales is a burial mound built 5,000 years ago called Bryn Cethu V. It's where the Neolithic buried their dead, and it has a solar alignment in the passage. Excavations have uncovered that originally there were 5 wooden posts on the tomb's forecourt, and before the tomb was built, a pit was made and cremated bones were placed in it. Stones were placed in a circle around the pit to locate the position of the sun on the summer solstice. A large wooden stone was placed in the central pit and is covered in markings of spirals and zigzags. Eventually, a henge ditch and a bank was dug, and local rocks were then used to create the chamber entrance. The curbstones placed around the outside in a circle, all of which were then covered by a huge dome, sort of like a mound of earth. It's an important feature in the mound, because on the longest day of the year, the sun shines down the entrance into the dome. The mound we see today is much smaller than the original, as it was rebuilt after the excavations that took place in 1928, and it was then that they found the patterned stone. The ceremony takes place here on or around the solstice by the Anglesey Druids, as our ancestral Druids of Britain once called Anglesey their home. Now, they would have celebrated this time of the year every year as a symbol of death and rebirth. Milton Keynes. Now, before those of you who know Milton Keynes go, "What?" I learned about this one too. So, for those of you first who don't know where Milton Keynes is, in brief, it was a created town in the 1960s, and it has grown ever since. So, it was a brand new town. So, those of us of a certain age will remember the plastic cows in the fields around the town, because they were wanting to mix rural life gently in with town life. So we all remembered the cows. And it became actually quite famous for the cows. Anyway, it has a wonderful shopping centre and actually has a road called Midsummer Boulevard that leads out to the east towards Campbell Park, where there is a light pyramid. There is also the Rose, which is the Milton Keynes Rose, and it's a vast and impressive open-air circle with markings based on the mathematical beauty of a flower. There's 106 granite pillars of varying heights emerging from the surface, many of which are inscribed with dates of events that are local, national or international significance. Now this year the council decided to hold a Midsummer Festival on Midsummer Boulevard with music, street theatre, folklore tales, food and workshops. Attending the above, it's a large space and it's great actually there, because if you're going, you can park up and spend the day there and be part of a celebration. So I think that's quite nice, because that's very, very modern. That's you've got all the old ancient druid ceremonies that take place at the Stones, but then you've got something like this happening in Milton Keynes, which is a much more modern version of the Summer Solstice. Staying with the more modern theme, down in the southwest of England, the Galloway Festival takes place in Penzance. It's on between the 21st and the 30th of June, and it's a 10-day festival of arts, performances, culture and parades, and it's the UK's second largest street festival. This year's theme on their website says that it's Together We Shine, and it showcases the best of communities. And again, I will leave a link in the show notes description box below if you are in the area, or perhaps you're on holiday at that time and you'd like to go and check that one out. So another one you might be interested in, I've just had to literally drop in because I got to the end of this podcast and thought, oh, I've forgotten about the Chalice Well in Glastonbury. Chalice Well, Glastonbury, always does a meditation on every point of the Wheel of the Year, live from the wellhead. I'll put a link in to the show notes description below. You can have a look at it. You need to go and kind of look at it first and just check what time it starts. It's normally from about 9 o'clock in the morning. If you're wanting to attend, there's details on there on times to attend as well. And it's really a nice one to go to. So I thought I'd put that on just as an extra, and because I forgot all about it. Anyway, if you do go, let me know. It'd be great. There are probably plenty of other places you can visit in the UK, but I would really be interested now in getting to know new places that you may have found, or if you are anywhere else around the world, where do you go to celebrate? Do you have annual festivals or gatherings of any kind? Let me know in the comments below, because it's always lovely to read different things that take place, whether they are on an ancient theme or whether they're now sort of more modern and more about a festival. I think one of the best places to celebrate the solstice will always be in your own area. Your backyard, garden, local park, balcony, or even just the window ledge. Your sacred space and your heartfelt connection to the energies are all that's needed. Sometimes we put too much pressure on ourselves to be somewhere, to attend something, when really we just need to sit and connect within and without. But if you attend any of the larger celebrations, Stonehenge, Avebury, Glastonbury, you may find you don't resonate with those energies there. I have seen people over many years desperate to attend a large gathering, only to be incredibly shocked on how busy it is, how noisy, so many people are there that perhaps aren't on the same path. They've just gone to attend for the experience, which is fine. There's absolutely no reason why anybody should not go to these places. But if you're going with something in mind, with lots of singing and chanting and drumming going on, you've got to go to these places with an open heart and open mind, and personally think about what you want to get out of it before you go, and see if you gained that when you came back. So what can you do if you can't make a local or national event, or in fact if you've got absolutely nothing suitable in your area? Firstly, you can just watch the sunset and the sunrise live at Stonehenge on English Heritage YouTube channel from anywhere in the world. I'll leave the link for you in the description box below. It's free, and there are several cameras positioned to get the best screenshot if you actually want it to see when you see the sun come up. Bearing in mind that we have had a lot of rain this year, and I've looked at the forecast. It's not looking particularly brilliant right now. I have seen Stonehenge, and I've watched it online when there has been a really rainy sky. And actually it's a bit sort of like you're looking at it thinking the sun is behind there somewhere, but you've got absolutely no idea when it's happening. So just bear that in mind this year. You might find that the weather is not too brilliant, but you can watch it if you wish to live, and I will leave that up. I think the sun rises about any time after 4. I can't remember the exact time, but I'll leave the link for that if you want to sit and watch that online. So what can we do to make things more personal for us? Now, as always, fire pits and bonfires if you can. Failing that, a candle. Historically and still to this day, bonfires have always been a way of celebrating, and it was a way of bringing communities together. And we often see beacons lit for special occasions. One just passed where 800 beacons were lit across the UK to celebrate the 80 years of passing of D-Day or Operation Overlord. If you don't have room or space for a fire, just a candle maybe will work. It's all about how you can find time to celebrate. Now, you could watch the sunrise and the sunset, so whether you go and try it on the same coastline or you just sit and perhaps do one in your garden. Sunrises are fabulous to watch as the sun breaks on a new day, and the Goddess Brigade is part of that sunrise. If you're interested in her, there is a meditation on my channel and you can connect with her through that if you wish to. However, watching a sunset from your own backyard, garden, local park, top of a cliff are all great ways of connecting with the solstice energy. Now, I appreciate that some of you may not be able to do this because you've got young families and you can't just get up and leave the kids. Don't sweat the stuff like this. It's like I said earlier, there will come a time when you'll perhaps be able to attend these things. And like I said, don't put pressure on yourself to think, oh, I really want to go and do this, but I've got youngsters and I can't, and then feel bad about it. That's not what this is about. When I write these, I don't write them that anybody should feel really awful that they can't go and attend. Do what works for you. If you can't even get up, if you just get up and have a loo break and go, oh, look, the sun's rising. Hey, you've acknowledged it. That's what you can do in your time, and that's great. You could make a St. John's wort flower arrangement along with other flowers. Do you grow cut flowers in your garden? You could make a crown to wear with your children. They could all make one as well from any flowers that you have available. And don't forget, if you're cutting the flowers, to ask the flowers permission before you cut any heads off. Nature works. Always a good thing. Whether you are by the sea or inland, there's always something we can learn from the plants at this time of year on a nature walk. Gardening. How many of those veggies or plants are coming through that you started earlier off in the year? Are you looking to grow some winter brassicas, for example, or any vegetables for over the winter period? Perhaps that's something you could be looking at doing at this time of the year. Write a ritual to the sun. Anything that is kind of outdoorsy, or watching any version of Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream, practicing divination, go to a drumming circle. Hand fasting ceremonies always take place this time of the year. They're all great ways to enjoy the solstice. One good thing to do, and I find is absolutely brilliant, is kick off your shoes, step onto the grass and stand still. Take a break for 3 days and just rest. Why do we always need to be filling every moment of our time with something? Sometimes the best inspiration and work is completed within our souls when we stand still. So take time out to just sit in nature, read a book, drink tea, bake. Just do whatever you do that is you, not for anyone else. Have some time just for you and you only. Give yourself permission to take 3 days off from everything. Correspondences for the summer solstice. If you like to journal, you have a book of shadows or a book of the ways. Our plants would be St. John's wort, rose, yarrow, elder, lemon balm, meadowsweet, chamomile, lavender and St. John's plant. Stones are citrine, sunstone, clear quartz, amber, carnelian and tiger's eye. Food. Anything you have grown that is now in season and ready to harvest, but also honey, cheese, homemade lemonade, mead, ale and wine, and of course, this time of the year, strawberries. Intentions are love, life, light, passion, creativity, healing, health and growth, empowerment, fertility, power, success, prosperity, happiness and warmth. So use those for any intention setting that you like to do. Gods and goddesses, Gaia, Esther, Anya, Brigantia, Venus, Aphrodite, Apollo, Zeus and Thor, Ra, the Green Man, the Oak King, Anuket, Egyptian again, Benten is Japanese, basically any other gods and goddesses who are sun related. So what do you do for the solstice? Do you go big or go home? Do you visit anywhere like Stonehenge, Glastonbury, if you're in the UK? If you're anywhere else around the globe, does anything happen in your area? Have you got somewhere that you can share with us that we probably don't know about? I mean, there must be lots of people around the globe who've never heard of Stonehenge, for example. So it's the same for us. Where do you go if you go anywhere at all, or if you just do something in your backyard? Leave a comment below. Tell us what you get up to. I like to just use my sacred space where I can just stand still and hold that energy within myself. And I like to make an incense to burn for this time of the year. And I use this recipe by Scott Cunningham, and I've done for many years. And of course, you can make your own. Just choose dried herbs and flowers that are appropriate for this time of the year and maybe perhaps mean something to you. Now mix all these together, and they're to be burned on one of the little charcoal discs or in a simmer pot if you prefer to do it that way. So you'll need 2 teaspoons of sandalwood, 1 teaspoon of mugwort, 1 teaspoon of chamomile, a teaspoon of gardenia, 2 to 5 drops of rose oil, 2 to 5 drops of lavender oil, and 2 to 5 drops of yarrow. If you like to drink tisanes, or as they now have started to become called teas, but they're not because they don't have the tea plant in them, then there's a lovely summer recipe you can use, which is both fresh or dried. If you grow it, then obviously use fresh if you can, but most of us end up having to use whether we've dried it ourselves or we buy them in. I like to make these tisanes in a large amounts to perhaps fill a jam jar so that I can use it as often as I need. But this is a summer tea that I quite like. You'll need 1 part hawthorn leaf and flower, 1 part Douglas fir, 1 part anise seeds, 1 part nettle leaf, 1 part rose petals, and 1 part mint. Now when I say part, that could be a teaspoon if you're just making it for one person, or it could be a tablespoon if you're going to make larger. It's up to you. You decide how strong you want it and how much you want to use of this. So it's easier to experiment with these things first, because it might not taste quite how you want it to. So pour over 1.5 cups of hot water onto that mixture and steep for about 10 minutes. Strain it, and then you can add honey or stevia if you prefer a slightly sweeter taste. Or you can do 4 parts of dried elderberry, 4 parts of rosehip, 3 parts of rose petals, 2 parts of milky oat tops, 1 part lavender blossom, 1 part calendula, and 1 part lemongrass. Pour over 1.5 cups of hot water onto all those tablespoons of 1.5 cups of hot water is for every 2 tablespoons. So when I've said 1 part of dried elderberry, if you have 2 tablespoons of that, meaning that part of the mixture, then you'll need 1.5 cups of hot water for every 2 tablespoons of tea mixture you use. So if you put 4 tablespoons of the tea mixture in, you would need 3 cups of water. Have I explained that well enough, or has that come out like sounding absolute rubbish? I'm sure you know what I mean if you make your own tisanes. Leave it to steep for 15 minutes. Now, if on a spiritual level you follow a Druid or Wiccan path, then here are some other things that you can do as well. Sun magic. Charge your tools, divination tools, crystals in the sun. The powerful energy of the sun at this time will definitely enhance your working tools. Be careful though when charging anything that can bounce light, so you don't end up setting light or burning something by the reflection of that item. You can also charge yourself in the sun. It doesn't have to be full sun if you don't like it, or maybe just for a short time, just being out there in the sun. As I've said, kick your shoes off, standing on the grass, and will give you a boost of serotonin. Outdoor rituals. Now it's a perfect time to use that sacred space you created and spend some time working with the energies, connecting with your chosen deity if you have one, or just the earth. If you don't have a sacred space, I have already covered this in a previous podcast. I'll leave a link in the description box below for you to experiment with ideas. Having an outdoor sacred space doesn't have to be on your own land. You can make a sacred space with you and take it wherever you go. Just gather up some items that mean something to you. Maybe a stone you've collected, perhaps a shell from the beach. You might even find there's a piece of wood that you have collected. Crystals that represent the 5 elements. You could take a candle if you wish to, you don't have to, or some water. Just having those 5 crystals that represent the elements and place them in the correct position. You can make yourself a little altar just sitting where you are. If you're just sitting in a field or sitting by the beach, you can make yourself a little sacred space. And if you want to align it perfectly, most of our phones these days, you can actually download a compass app, and I use one of those to make sure that I'm facing as close to north as possible for any ritual work. And if I'm coming into a circle, I'm coming in from the right side. And then just sit back and relax. Go to the beach. If you can or live close enough to the beach, then take time out over the solstice few days, whether it's the weekend before, whether it's actually on the solstice, or the weekend after, if you have some free time to go to a beach. It doesn't matter when you go. It hasn't got to be on the actual solstice time. The energies are around for quite a while, and obviously weekends are probably going to be busy. So if it's raining, still go to that sunrise and the sunset. Stand in that liminal space between land and sea and just connect. Meditate in nature. Try different places to meditate if you can. Maybe a local woodland by the beach, in a park, your back garden. These are all great places to just sit and have some calmness and to watch. You don't have to close your eyes. Just watch what's happening in your garden. Watch the insects, watch the birds. Meditate isn't just about closing your eyes. It's just letting yourself settle and letting yourself be calm. I've had the most wonderful experiences meditating with my eyes open on a beach, watching dogs playing, that just gently breathing and feeling the wind on my face, listening to the waves and any birds that are around, and just having that moment of complete and utter calm. Fire ceremonies, as I've already mentioned, bonfires and fire pits. This is when you can use a fire to help in transformation and purification of yourself. Use it to release anything that doesn't work for you or is serving you. You can do this in a proper ceremony of writing things down on either a piece of paper, or I've used the back of a dried bay leaf. Find 5 and write down anything that doesn't work for you, that you want to get rid of that energy out of your life. Some things, maybe perhaps you need to forgive someone, or maybe you need to forgive yourself, so that energy though doesn't stay and you can just move on. Then light your fire and drop that paper or bay leaf into the fire and let that negative clinging on energy go so that you can move forward. Herb or flower magic. Now, many of our plant allies are here to help at all times of the year, and at this time of the year they are in abundance and ready to harvest and dry. Now, if you have been growing your plants or flowers to work with as part of the herb garden series that I have been doing the podcast on, then you might find it's time to harvest some of these. So dry and use in many different ways. Perhaps you might want to make some tinctures, some room sprays, etc., or just bring some of those flowers in. If you are cutting and you are removing those plants, don't forget to remind yourself to ask the plant's permission to take part of that plant away. Don't just go in there and hack a piece of plant off. Otherwise, all that beautiful energy that you have created in working with that plant, you've just destroyed it. So take your time. Never ever just take from a plant. Always ask that plant's permission. Otherwise, whatever you take is not going to work for you, surprisingly. Abundance magic is all about working with the energies of the season. Now, although the solstice is not yet in harvest season, we are harvesting energies from plants and flowers. You can use the flowers to adorn your altars, give to friends maybe, perhaps preserve some of the herbs and some of the herbs' flowers, and any plants you have grown over the summer period for use in the future in abundance magic. Journaling. Use this time to prepare for the next 6 months of the year as we walk towards the winter solstice and the loss of the daylight hours. Look back on your journal over the past 6 months. What were your goals? Have you managed to achieve any of them? Doesn't matter if you haven't. But what I'm saying here is that what you couldn't do, perhaps you can do as you move forward over the next 6 months. So journaling is always a really good one to do. In my Patreon account, I have 2 tiers now, and I'm starting to put different workbooks and ways of working with journaling or with the on a more spiritual level, so talking about the Wheel of the Year in as books that are they're downloadable, that you can use and print off, or you can leave them just as download them and use them as aid memoirs. But they are going into a new tier that I have added to my Patreon account. So if you're interested in working or learning more about the Wiccan and Druid path, then they are going into that. But they're not based on ritual Wiccan and Druid areas. They're quite broad in a sense that you can use them in what works for you. So I hope this has given you some inspiration on celebrating the solstice on your path. We're obviously all different, and if this year is not the year that you can spend in complete connection with yourself and the energies of the solstice, it doesn't matter. At some point you will manifest the time when it's needed for you or when you want to. At this point in time, you just do you. This year for the solstice, I am going to be at home, but next year I've got plans to be at the beach. So I will obviously keep you all informed on that one. Thank you for being with me today for this podcast. I look forward to sharing with you more in the coming weeks and months. If you haven't already subscribed, please do, and also say hello in the comments below. Tell me where you are listening from. Tell me how you celebrate. What are you getting up to this summer? Have you got plans to take a vacation somewhere? What do you like to do at this time of the year, in anything in particular? Thank you to my patrons too for your continued support, and obviously I've put the link below to Patreon if anybody's interested in coming and joining. The more people join the Patreon, then the more I can build it, and we can perhaps start putting a grove of people together, and maybe in the future we can do some live work as well. I think I have talked now for far too long, so with all the love, light and peace in your grove, for a beautiful, fun-filled, radiant and blessed solstice, wherever you are. Until next time, bye for now.